and a very warm welcome to Tuesday at 2. IODs, Southwest, Tuesday at 2. This is number 5 in the, I think we call this the lockdown series. And very shortly, it's going to be my absolute pleasure to welcome Victoria, Victoria Matthews from Business West. But before I enter into a couple of parish notices, for those who've joined us from across the Severn, I've only just found out that Victoria was brought up in Haverfordwest. So there you go. She does both sides of the Severn Estuary. So look, a couple of parish notices from me in a minute. Then I'm going to just hand over to Johnny at SXS Events here to tell you something about how to get the best out of Zoom and a little bit about the backdrop that we're experimenting with here today. And then I'll introduce Victoria, and then we'll have some Q&A. So that's the running order. So parish notices first. Well, fellow directors, fellow members, what can I say except keep hanging on in there. It's tough, but I'm still seeing plenty of people who are smiling. Smiling with the horror of it, or smiling with the innovations that they're engaging with to help their business, help their organization adapt and do better. Do keep reading our weekly updates. This last week, it was great for us to include the 3 interactive guides. There was interactive guide for directors, the interactive guide for SMEs, and the interactive guide for the self-employed. So keep checking that out. 8:30 every Thursday morning. Next bulletin will come out again this week, and we'll be offering some advice on leaving lockdown and some of the health and safety issues to be alive to. So I think that's me on the parish notices. Do keep reading the newsletter and do keep feeding back to us at our email address. Sarah, I, or Simon will pick it up and handle it. And thanks for the fabulous feedback about how you're enjoying the bulletin and how you're enjoying these Tuesdays at 2. My only tech note is please stay on mute until the Q&A, okay? Use the chat box if you've got some questions. And we will be recording this, okay? Now that's my 2 tech notes, but I do want to hand over to Johnny at SXS, who's got much more of value to tell you. Johnny.
Thanks, Neil. Appreciate that. I think we're all zoomed out, aren't we, people? Can you hear me? Give me a thumbs up, please. Good. All zoomed out. Brilliant. I want to give you guys a couple of really simple things you can do at home to make your Zoom calls less horrendous. And then I also want to tell you a really quick story about the pivot my company's made to create this experimental space we have here. Zoom calls. We probably all find them infuriating, myself included. They don't have to be that bad. Zoom, Teams, and the rest of them are all fantastic pieces of software. The problem is how we're using them. There's 2 massive issues I see with Zoom you can fix right now. The first one is your sound. We weren't exactly perfect this morning here in the studio either, but what you guys can all do is stop using the microphone inside your laptop. When the microphone's a meter away from you, it's hearing a lot more echo in your room than it is your voice. Get a microphone, any cheap USB microphone from Amazon or whatever, plug it into your computer and get it as close to your mouth as possible. You'll see right now I've got a microphone right up next to my mouth, so you can't hear the room, you can hear me. Get a microphone, put it close to your mouth. The next thing is your lighting. A lot of the time people are doing their Zoom chats, and I'm looking at you people now with windows behind you. You know who you are. Don't have a laptop looking at your face with a window behind. What your camera does, it's really clever. It adjusts itself to the brightest light it sees, which is your window. Then it can't see your face. Now, if I can't see your face in Zoom, there's no point having the video at all. You may as well turn your camera off. But I want to see your face because I want to communicate with you. So what you need to do is get a thing called key light. This is any source of light that hits your face and makes your face brighter than your background. You can do that with a desk lamp. You can do it with a ceiling light. You can even do it with a computer monitor, actually. Anything to make sure your face is brighter than your background. They're the 2 key things. I hope you can take them home and make your life better using them for Zoom. Quick story as well. I run an event production company, and as you guys probably know, the events industry has disappeared completely. There is no work. Luckily for our company, we've got some great clients, and they've just postponed their events to later in the year. So we did a massive pivot. We built this studio here, which is basically a TV studio for events. And the process we went through is that we looked at what our resources were and how else we could use them. And we thought, if we can do live events, we can do TV. So we jumped straight across into TV 3 months ago. Only now are my competitors thinking about doing the same. We're 3 months ahead of them, but at their speed, they're a year behind us. I encourage all of you directors out there to consider your resources and think where else you can utilize them to be part of whatever the new normal looks like.
Johnny, thank you for that quick hints and tips and prep for the new normal. Look, it's my enormous pleasure to introduce Victoria, Victoria Matthews. She heads up the initiative here in Business West in Bristol, despite her roots over the other side of the Severn in Haverford West. You only have to talk to Victoria for 5 minutes to know how enthused she is about the region, how enthused she is about the economy, and how enthused she is about helping businesses survive, particularly at this difficult time. And again, it only takes a couple of minutes to realize how much she wants the Southwest to be the region to work, to learn in, and to live in. I think that's your strapline, isn't it, Victoria? So without further ado, let's hear from Victoria about how she's been working already with businesses in the Southwest through the crisis, and tee up a Q&A, a discussion about the help that you need from people like Victoria. Victoria, over to you. Great to have you with us.
That's like the nicest introduction I've ever had, thank you. Thank you so much for having me here today. I really, really do appreciate it. Essentially, I'm the initiative manager at Business West. I'm just going to quickly sort of counter through the various types of support that we've been offering businesses here in the Southwest. We see very trying times at the moment, so thank you for having me. I do appreciate it. Just a quickie, hopefully you all know. So business, oh yeah, sorry, technical issues. Can you hear me now? Yeah, cool. Sorry about that. So just very quickly about Business West. So hopefully you can all see the screen. So Business West, we're the largest chambers of commerce in the UK. We work and represent over 22,000 businesses. And essentially, like Mia said, our vision is to make Bristol and the West of England and the Southwest the best place to live and work in the UK. So our kind of vision is to essentially bring leaders together in order to create a prosperous city region where everybody thrives, not just businesses. Just a bit of very sort of description of who we work with. Can you see the screen? Yeah, perfect. I'm sure most of you are aware we work with
I need to be able to see the chat coming through. Thank you. This is already quite a bit of chat.
SME, up to large corporates. So we work with anybody and everybody across the Southwest who wants help. They don't have to pay for our support. We are a membership organisation, however, we do offer our support, particularly in this time, for free. So hopefully most of you have seen, so we have set up a new platform called Trading through Coronavirus. So we're providing guidance and support for businesses across the Southwest. No charge whatsoever for those people, employees, employers and businesses across the region. So our expert team have been on hand answering hundreds of very, very detailed questions, whether that be questions on employment law, furloughing staff, redundancies, debt and solvency. We've had a whole host of different queries, as I'm sure you've seen as well. So as one of the leading chambers of commerce in the UK, it's our role to actually closely monitor developments coming out by government and ensure that we are providing concise and clear information for businesses that need it in this time.
Victoria?
So,
Victoria, so it's Karen here. Can you hear me? We need to fix your microphone. We can't hear you.
Oh, they can't hear me.
Right, well.
Sorry.
Thank you, Karen, for letting us know.
It's not your fault.
As ever, we're experimenting.
Yeah, I know. Just so you don't carry on and we're all going, we can't hear you.
Try again.
Can you guys hear me a bit better now?
We can see you, fine, but we can't hear you very well.
You can't hear me very well. Oh, I'm really
That's
sorry. Would it help if I held the microphone?
No, that's better.
Is it better if I do that?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, guys. I feel like I was on a real roll there, you know. I was like, oh, this is a good one today. I feel confident about this. Okay, never mind. Please let me know if you can't hear me again. It's really loud now. We're going to go back down here then. Can you still hear me now? Oh, sorry about this, guys. Okay. Let me know if you can't. Thank you for that heads up. So in terms of the tangible things that we've been doing, so we've got our webcast and podcast series. So essentially, it's important for us to provide up-to-date, clear information on what businesses need. So we're having constant advice from government, as I'm sure you guys are as well. And it's up to us to actually sort of listen to the business community and work out what you need at this time and ensure that we're providing that information to you. So we've had a whole host of different podcasts and whole experts coming on, as I'm sure you have. So we've had gender equality, support for charities, you know, updates on the PPE shortage, the rural economy, and particularly the visitor economy, here in the Southwest. So one of our main roles as the Chambers of Commerce is to ensure that your business voice is heard on both the local and national level. So we're ensuring that we lobby at the national and local level to make sure that, you know, the support is viable, you're getting what you need, and if you're not, what are your concerns and how do we support you in that? So we've been working with the British Chambers on a whole host of issues. So for example, right at the start of lockdown, we worked with British Chambers to clarify some quite ambiguous things on furloughing, what this meant for companies, can employees take holiday pay, very basic things like that, but quite unclear at the start. So we've been doing loads and loads of work behind the scenes to try and provide clear information. So you can see our lobbying success recently, which is great. So we've worked with over 500 businesses in Bristol and Bath. They have signed a letter of support to go to government to say, we are not eligible for the small business grants. So before we got involved with places like TechSpark and Engine Shed and Bristol Technology Festival, business shared workspaces were not eligible for 10,000 to 25,000 small business grants. This was a huge issue for people. So what we did is we put a letter of support, we lobbied Bayes and we lobbied the small business minister, and now they do have the support, which is fantastic. So there's a new discretionary fund which has come out over the past few days that went live, I think, yesterday for businesses to apply for. So we have all the links on our site, people on hand, to make sure that people know what they're doing. And essentially, yeah, we are continuing to work with the local authorities and to push them to ensure that they are getting the grants out. A lot of the feedback that we've been getting is that it's been a very long process, people aren't sure if they're eligible. So we have been working to try and sort of, you know,
people are saying
ease the pain for people. So this is probably the largest section that we've had at the moment. So we conducted the largest business survey in the UK at the start of April. So we did a business impact survey, you can see here. It was picked up by BBC, Financial Times, etc. And essentially we had over 1,100 respondents. It was the largest of its kind. And we were asking essentially how businesses are coping and how they envisage coping in future. And essentially what it highlighted is the unparalleled scale of the economic impact that it's having on businesses here in the Southwest. So essentially it illustrated that the COVID-19 crisis is far worse than any crisis we've seen, whether that be the 2008 financial crisis or any other recession of our time. So it's really pretty scary stuff. So the headline stat was that only 16% of businesses, that's 1/6, believed that they would be able to cope if coronavirus lasted for 6 or more months. Obviously things have moved on since mid-April now, which is good. The lockdown is easing. So I imagine if we ask these questions again, there would be slightly different answers. But just to canter through these. So we asked, what would be the viability of your business if the government's current social distancing measures continue? And only 16% said that they'd be able to cope in 6 months' time. We asked, do you have concerns about your financial position due to the impact of COVID-19? You can see here, so we broke it down essentially by staff numbers. So sole traders, 88% were very, very concerned for the future, all the way up to 10 plus staff. Over 86% said they were very concerned. Now, this is a survey with sole traders, with SMEs. We had responses from larger corporates, the PwCs, the big conglomerates in the world. So we do have quite a good range of results here. Pretty standard. So 72% said that they'd seen decreased orders and sales. A lot of people are losing business due to cancelled contracts. A lot of them had cash flow issues. However, interestingly, here at the bottom, almost 5% of people said that they had increased orders or sales. I imagine, as I say, if we ask this again, that number would probably be higher. So we are seeing a lot of businesses innovate and adapt, as they have done here in this awesome space. So there are companies that are innovating, looking at new ways to do business, and they're being quite successful. However, the majority of them are, of course, struggling. And then, what measures besides utilising the government's furloughing scheme would you take considering? So this is the biggie, really. So for those who said that they were going to be reducing labour costs, 79% said they would be reducing working hours for their staff or themselves. And worryingly, 47% said that they would start to make redundancies. We are seeing an increase in this since we have sadly put this survey out. You would have seen recently big aerospace industries in Bristol, the manufacturing aerospace here in the southwest, the Rolls-Royces, the Airbuses, they are unfortunately starting to make redundancies now. However, it's not all bad news. We are trying to stay positive. Sorry, I know it's a bit doom and gloom. It does get better. So what are we doing? So we have all of our practical support. We have our lobbying power. We have our influencing power. In terms of the next steps, we are working with lovely people like yourselves. We are working with WECA, Bristol One City, all of the unitary authorities, the CBI, etc., to actually form a unified approach to what we want to see. So, you know, we have, for example, our managing director, he sits now on WECA's regional board. There's so many different boards at the moment, but we are trying to lobby these people to come together to have a uniformed approach. And this is where we're at. So we are looking now at the economic restart and recovery phase, as I'm sure most of you are doing with your businesses. How to get people back to work safely, how to do this compliantly and ensure that your colleagues and your staff feel safe to do so. So our aim, well, the region's aim is for the city and the PAN region to develop a coordinated response to ensure that we have a strong, consistent message to both local government and national government. So we're working with a lot of people, so the WECAs, the LEPs, the Western Gateway partnerships, to try and bring this together. We have gone out to our members to say, do you want to get involved? Do you have particular expertise that we could draw on? We are very, very happy to hear from people that feel that they can really sort of align with this approach and actually help what we're trying to do. So essentially what we're doing now is setting the direction for the long-term recovery with our partners. So I'm sure you've been having conversations about the best way to move forward. It'd be brilliant if we could try and align our approaches as well and just sort of think about what you're thinking about, try and align it to what the One City approach is, to what WECA is. We are trying to have a cohesive approach to economic recovery. It's a very big issue. We're envisaging it's going to be a pretty tough few months for the Southwest, as I'm sure you're aware. So as long as we can try and work together, have a bit of approach, we should hopefully get there. So that's me. There's our Trading Through Coronavirus link there. If you do have any questions about support or businesses that you're working with that you feel would like to ask a question, or if they want some expertise, it's totally free to use. We have experts on hand. There's our lovely staff. Thank you very, very much for listening to me. I do really appreciate it. I'm very happy to take any questions, but hopefully that's a pretty good overview of everything that we've been doing so far. But I suppose the final point is we are a business organisation, but there's a very human factor to our approach. We are very acutely aware that people's jobs are at risk. We have had people on the phone distraught that their business is going to go under, that they cannot pay their staff. So we are very, very aware. Our team is working tirelessly and we're very proud to be doing what we're doing at the moment. So if you have any questions, very happy to answer them. But otherwise, thank you very much for having me.
Victoria, thank you. So open house for questions, I guess. And I'm looking to see what's coming in on the chat here. I guess before I ask my first question, I'm going to go straight to Karen. Karen, do you want to just come in and put your question, and we'll test the tech as well for Victoria here.
Sure. Can I say thanks very much to you both? And this is an experiment. You've both done great. But Victoria, thank you. This might be quite a naive question.
The volume up a little bit here for us.
Can you hear me? No. Just read it out from the chat box.
Okay, so I'm just been told that unfortunately, despite all the good advice earlier about microphones, this is going to be text-based. So Karen, I'm going to put your question to Victoria.
Of course.
We'll see if I can do the reading and translating. So Karen's very important question here for you is, what's the biggest issue you're hearing from business now? We've seen the survey, actually really quite pessimistic when you did the survey about a month or so ago. What's the number one thing now?
So from our perspective, people are very concerned that the furlough scheme is obviously ending in October. People are very concerned, particularly about the visitor economy here within the Southwest. There's been talk, I was mentioning to me earlier, about developing a Bristol kite mark. So you can actually badge attractions and businesses as safe, so that they will be taking the PPE guidance safely and securely, and people will feel then confident to go back to work. They will feel confident that they can go out and spend money in Bristol Harbourside. So that's one of the things that we're sort of working on. But in terms of the biggest issue, it's probably cash. People are really struggling now with cash flow, and the furlough scheme. That is the biggest thing that we're seeing. Obviously, it's been extended. And the new guidance has come out that obviously employers will need to pay national insurance and pension contributions moving forward. However, we are envisaging, obviously, when that ends, it's going to be an interesting time for a lot of businesses that have been bleeding cash. So we are continuing to lobby for this. We are continuing to look at what other government support might be available, but predominantly furlough, I think, unfortunately.
Furlough. Can we ask a little bit more about this kite mark?
Yes.
Victoria,
Yes.
and how it will work, and how any of our members, how wide in the region might it spread,
Yes.
and how do any of our members connect with it and earn themselves
Yes, it's a good idea,
a
isn't it?
Victoria Matthews kite mark?
I mean, obviously, trademark, like, give me permission now. So it was an idea that was brought forward by the English Tourism Board. So the visitor economy is probably going to be the last thing to actually reopen and to sort of get back on its feet, essentially. So the chair of the SS Great Britain saw this and he thought, you know what, why don't we develop a Bristol kite mark or a regional kite mark that we can sort of own ourselves? We can badge it, we have authority, we can work out what the criteria would be. And so it's very, very early stage, but absolutely, if people do have ideas or they want to get involved, we've mentioned this to the council, they seem quite keen. So any ideas or any ways to take this forward, be really keen to hear from you. It does sound quite cool, it's quite exciting.
But you're the point of contact. Yeah.
Exactly.
So we've got a question from Simon Duncan at Close Brothers Merchant Bank. Simon, if I may, thank you for a question that's on a lot of people's lips. It's very simple, but not so easy to answer. He asks, can we meet clients for business meetings, and particularly in his kind of business? What's the guidance?
That's an excellent question. So we're having this a lot now. Obviously, you can meet up to 6 people in your social life. We have asked the question whether that then translates into business life. Obviously, a lot of it merges. So we are clarifying that. I know that's a really rubbish thing to say. We have been having webinars. So for example, one of our members, Womble Bond Dickinson, they provided a free webinar for anybody to join where they actually went through the legalities of how to return to work safely, what needed to happen, and to ensure your office space was compliant and you felt safe to do so. Let me go back and check. I will get back to you. We have a policy team that are on hand. They're answering hundreds of questions a day. I can definitely put that to them. My gut would be, if offices are starting to reopen now from the 1st of June, if your client feels comfortable and safe enough to do so, then I would imagine you probably can. Obviously, Mia and I have come here today. We're socially distanced. We've got the hand sanitizer. I suppose it's down to personal preference and what your client feels safe and able to do so.
Can I press you a little bit, because I'm sure Simon, if Simon doesn't mind, because it's a great question, is what do you think is the extent, Victoria, to which guidance will be a kind of authoritative and quite, black and white? You can do this, you can't do the other. Like, I think 2 meters is pretty black and white.
Mm-hmm.
And where will it be for each business to develop their own common sense, reasonable, how do I feel comfortable that I'm safe? I, as a director, am running a safe operation. My clients are sufficiently safe, and I can I can reassure them,
Yeah.
particularly in something that's an intimate meeting between a client and their advisor, for which many of our members, of course, in that situation.
I think it's the common sense approach, isn't it? So it's the Dominic Cummings effect all over again. People are thinking, well, this guy's broken the rules. Does this actually sort of apply now for businesses? The advice that we've been given is, if you have taken reasonable steps and reasonable measures to ensure that your workplace is safe, then obviously you can start to reopen. Somebody asked the question the other day, what happens if a member of my staff, if the office is reopened, but a member of my staff does not feel safe enough to come into the office? Am I okay to discipline them? What is the process here? And the honest answer was that that's a HR issue that you would need to sort of ascertain within your business, and you'd sort of need to work out. We are putting guidance together. We are putting webinars and podcasts together for exactly this. People want to get back to work now, hopefully safely. But we are seeing a lot of offices here in the centre of Bristol getting health and safety experts. They're getting in cleaning companies. You know, they're moving their desks around. We do envisage as well that office space, the demand for that will change significantly now, of course. Whereas before, certainly here in the centre of Bristol, there was a lack of office space. We are envisaging that that will change slightly. You know, the co-working spaces, will there be a huge need for that after this? We're not sure. Obviously, it's very much dependent upon each individual business. But I think as long as you're commonsensical, as long as you are having good communication with your staff, this is one of the main issues, is that a lot of employers maybe perhaps haven't been communicating as effectively with their staff. And that's certainly what we've been hearing from employees, is that they're not sure when they're reopening, their leadership team isn't actually that visible, they don't feel they've got the correct advice. So speak to your HR team, have a look at the government guidance, but anything we can do, we will put out as well in support.
Thank you. I mean, for what it's worth, and while I wait for another question or two to come up, what did I do this morning to try and boost the local economy and to play my part in combating climate change, and also play my part in not taking public transport as much as I fondly like to do? Way back in that past normal, I went to a car dealership to buy an electric car, or to check out an electric car. So my 2-minute little story here. So I booked an appointment in advance at a dealership I'd never been to. It was here in Bristol. I was expected. At the front door, a gentleman there ticked my name off. He offered me hand sanitizer. He offered me a face mask. He said, yeah, you're here to see so-and-so. I'll take you to see him. And you know what car dealerships are like. They are quite spacious, but they have the dealers have their desks. And the dealer I had an appointment with was behind a Perspex screen, but it wasn't an oppressive screen. You know, he and I could have a very, very straightforward conversation. He could pass me the car keys under the portal. We having had a little hand sanitizer ceremony. But he said, but of course I will not be driving with you on this test drive, so you've got to leave your driving license and your car keys with me, he says, as collateral. And then we had a distanced introduction to the controls and all the rest of it, and off I buzzed in a car that also had hand sanitizer in the glove compartment there, or in the central console. So I have to say, I went with some trepidation, but this particular dealership did make it feel as straightforward as possible, yet clearly with all these measures in place to ensure that I felt comfortable and that they felt comfortable. And so, if you like, the transaction of considering a car, looking it over, taking it for test drive and bringing it back was pretty straightforward. And I'm sensing that, exactly to Victoria's point here, common sense and those rules that have been drummed into us, we can probably all do something to make things work, whether or not we've got an HR department or we're a sole trader doing it for ourselves. Look, I've got a question from Guy here. Really good one here, Victoria. What's the feeling about regional differences? Southwest, very low infection rates right now. So here's the ever optimistic Guy. Could the West be leading the way in leaving lockdown? showing how innovative we are?
Yes, I love it. Yes, this is what we want. So you're probably aware of the Western Gateway Partnership. So that's sort of kicking off at the moment now. So that's kind of Bristol, Bath, Western, all the way over to Cardiff, Newport and Swansea. So Catherine Bennett, who heads up Airbus here in the UK, she's been appointed chair of that. And alongside there, we've got, Tim Bowles, who's the Wrecker Mayor. We've got Marvin Rees, who's the Bristol Mayor, and leaders of all the local authorities who are actually going to be sitting on that. So we're hoping to sort of have like a pan-regional approach. But yes, obviously we are the lowest infection rate in the UK, which is amazing. We have been told by Public Health England, of course, that does not mean we are in any way excused from the rules. We in no way means we can get back to business sooner rather than later. But we have such a collective group of fantastic minds here in the region. We do need to be getting together. We do need to be putting forward a plan. Let's bring all these thoughts together. We are here. We are ready to go. And that is what we are saying now to national and local government. So any sort of, support you can give to that. If you do want to get in touch with us, we'd be really, really interested to hear from you. We sit on, I'm sure you guys do as well, on all sorts of boards, and we are very central at the Western Gateway Partnership. So we would love to get more people involved. We have to ask out at the moment to members of Business West to say, Western Gateway's coming. Do you guys want to get involved? Do you have any particular expertise? So I'm sure we'd be happy to extend that to you as well. If you do have any thoughts, let's do it. We're here. We're ready to go. Come on.
There we go. There's the challenge. Southwest leading the way. Although I'm very conscious that on the line we've got colleagues from South Wales, and I think I can see Chris Cliff there from Norwich, if I remember correctly. Welcome back, Chris. You're very welcome, both or any of you, just to offer your own regional views on the chat as to whether you think there should be a competitive atmosphere in the country as we lead the way, or a genuine leading the way for the benefit of all approach across the nation. So while Cliff, maybe Simon Williams, maybe Kerry Ann are thinking about that little challenge, I've got another question from Simon Duncan. Thank you, Simon. He's obviously checking out his work-life balance and how to achieve that. Can we now book a holiday cottage, Victoria, in, well, down further southwest than many of us are, Somerset, Devon, Cornwall?
Yeah, I mean, that's very difficult. I'm so sorry. I wouldn't have the answer definitively. I wouldn't want to say yes or no either way. We're not sure where we're going to be at the end of summer. I have a holiday to Pembrokeshire on August Bank Holiday weekend, which I haven't actually yet cancelled. Not stupidly, we're just seeing where things go. I think if your suppliers, if you ensure with them that you do have a cancellation policy, check out what their COVID-19 response has been like, check out what their policy is. I suppose in theory, if from my personal point of view, you are allowed to travel indefinitely now in the UK. You can travel about freely. You can only meet 6 people. I wouldn't be able to say yes or no. Personal preference, totally up to you. Obviously, local businesses do need all the support they can get. So I think what we're trying to do is encourage people after this crisis sort of chills out a bit, is shop locally if you can, invest more in UK holidaying. People like Bailey's Caravans in Bristol, they're actually envisaging a huge spike in sales. They're envisaging that a lot more people will be holidaying in the UK. People are going to be very reluctant to get on an airline for a while. So we're hoping that actually this will kind of reinvigorate the UK tourism. So it's totally up to you, Simon. You do what you want to do. I probably wouldn't be able to say yes or no definitively, but why not? If you can cancel it, go for it. I would.
My end note to that, Victoria, is that my wife 15 years ago said, we are not staying in that tent, our tent, ever again. There was something that prompted that quite clear remark, quite clear instruction. What did you say the other day? Have we still got that tent? It could be our escape route to somewhere without having to go through the transaction of a holiday cottage or a youth hostel. So Chris, here we go. Thank you, Chris, so much. So this is Chris. He lives in Norwich.
Lovely.
He's part of the IOD machine in Norfolk there. He says, in the East, we have an active chamber of commerce, a maturing but not quite there set of country Institute of Director branches, etc. All keen to improve the East region and all keen to collaborate. Yet we're all doing it in silos. How are you cracking the collaboration nut in the West? You talked about what it meant to collaborate with the likes of the IOD, the WECA, the local authorities, the LEPs, and so on. How are you making it work?
That's an excellent
Some
question.
top tips for the North, for the East, I should say.
You've got to have a pretty hard nut to crack. I mean, yeah, it's a hard nut to crack. You have egos here, like you do in any place. You have different political parties that arguably don't want to work together. However, in the West, we do have, you know, I think a sense of collective responsibility where we want to get our economy up and running. We know we're stronger together than we are as individual silos. So what we're trying to do is, it's all about sort of, for us, we form the individual relationships. So we're quite a historical chambers of commerce. So we've been around for over 200 years. I'm not saying that's indicative of good working mentality, but we've been very fortunate that we've been able to build these relationships over a very, you know, the longevity has been very good for us. However, we do have a collective sense of purpose. I think as long as your vision aligns, in theory, people should be wanting to get together. Obviously, it's very tricky with power, who chairs which board, who has responsibility over this. And we're not immune to this in the West either. I'm sure a lot of you on the call will be aware of that. We do have people that still work in silos. We do have people that still don't see the benefit of being stronger together. We are trying to still crack that nut. It's by no means like a fully formed hypothesis. We are still going at it ourselves. But I think it's about the vision. It's about the leadership. If you have strong leaders with a good culture and a good vision, I'm a big believer that you can kind of crack on and do what you need to do. So fingers crossed for the East. You can do it.
Yeah, exactly.
We're trying here in the West. We're doing all right.
I hope that helps a bit there, Cliff. I was going to ask, before I come to Simon Williams' question about the differences, of course, of the nation of Wales and how they're approaching the lockdown rather more cautiously, if you like, rather more gently. I'll come back to him in a minute. Do you want to say a bit about the kind of recovery board that Tim Bowles is chairing? Because if that's not herding cats, I don't know what is. I mean, it seems to me he's got all of us for a start. You know, all the people that you've mentioned above, so to speak, plus universities, plus all sorts of other thinkers, influencers. Have you got an update for us on how that's progressing?
So I believe the first meeting has happened. I think the notes are public. They should be if they're not already. So it's quite tricky with WECA. So I think our view is that without more powers and without more sort of devolved powers or money, being blunt, it could be quite a tricky ask. But the fact that they are trying to unify us, trying to bring these different sectors together, different leaders together, it's absolutely vital for everybody here in the Southwest. So we're fully behind it. We've got Phil Smith, who's our managing director. He sits on the boards. I believe they're looking at subgroups of this as well. So different sectors will be getting different subgroups. I think that is still in the works. This is sort of a very fluid situation. It is ongoing. We are still trying to provide updates. We're having updates from Tim Bowles and Marvin Rees to our members quite a lot. So we had an update from them 2 weeks ago about where we are, what we can expect, and essentially how the business community can get involved. So I'm hoping that they will still be open to more of that. There are lots of people that are really keen to get involved. So we are continuing to push that door down. We are continuing to speak for the businesses. And yeah, it's great that they've got the unis involved. They've got the nighttime economy involved. Hopefully it's a good collective set of voices.
Thank you, Victoria. I was going to chip in with a question that picks up on Simon Williams there. How we're finding the national differences. So we've got Wales right on our doorstep here, handling things differently. Do you want to say something about the dynamics between your opposite numbers there in Wales and us here, and indeed businesses that have got operations both sides of the Welsh border, and any particular issues about coping with the different national messages?
It's really tricky, obviously, with devolved nations. The Welsh government, very rightly or wrongly, has obviously extended their lockdown, which is absolutely right to do so. They're their own authority. They have, autonomy to do that. Obviously, with Bristol, we have a lot of commuters between Bristol and Newport. I believe at one stage they were stopping people on the bridge and sort of asking where they were going, which is fine. We're in constant contact with the South Wales Chambers as well. So we're hoping that obviously when lockdown eases, businesses certainly in the southeast and southwest of Wales are really, really keen to reopen as well, provided it's safe and legal to do so. And that has been our consistent message, is that we are following government guidance. Obviously, it's been tricky over the past few weeks with all the various breaches from government ministers, etc. But our advice to businesses who have been asking us is follow the government guidance. We've been trying to decipher what ambiguous guidance means. A lot of it has been quite ambiguous. It has been sort of up for interpretation. And that's probably been the main challenge. We're hoping that obviously the Southwest economy and Wales economy will sort of get up and running again soon, hopefully.
Yeah, thanks, Victoria. And Simon has just added there, one of our members in South Wales, Institute Directors member in South Wales, owns a series of car dealerships.
Yeah.
And their car dealerships in South Wales can't open for 3 weeks. And yet the ones they've got in Bristol have been up and running since yesterday.
Yeah. It's really tricky.
Maybe I knocked on their door this morning. I won't say which brand it was I was looking at. Victoria.
No product placement there.
No, quite.
It is really tricky. We are hearing that. We're seeing, obviously, there's a very human factor to this as well. Families are still separated. They're not able to see their loved ones. We're seeing, you know, people in Bristol now are able to travel about for work a little bit more. Obviously in South Wales, they're still not able to do so. So it'd be really, really interesting when lockdown is lifted in Wales to see, you know, the increase in traffic, increase in all of these things. But on that sort of mobility front, particularly between Wales and the Southwest, we have been looking at mobility, you know, the use of electric cars, trains, buses. It's a very good time now to actually do better, look at ways to innovate. How do we travel about? How do we do business? This is a really good opportunity to actually look at different ways of working. Electric bikes, electric scooters, perhaps. How do we take this forward? The pandemic has been awful. There's no getting by that. But we do have an opportunity now to do better by our businesses and better by our people. So we are looking at, you know, different ways that we can innovate ourselves and actually try and show best practice to businesses that do want to, you know, get more environmentally friendly. They want to be more sustainable. So we are working with other sort of partners looking at that sort of thing as well.
Victoria, thank you. I'm just checking to see if there's any more questions. Anybody want to raise their hand? Throw a tomato at me? No, I'm going to just gradually summarize and bring things to a close then with enormous thanks. But before I ask for a round of applause, let me just say a few things to thank everybody who's attended today, and the questions from far and wide around the country. That's super. Thanks for bearing with us on this experiment. Do feed back to us the things that you think work well about this format and the things that work less well. Clearly, starting on time would be an issue. Getting all the mics to work, allowing us to hear yourselves. It would have been really fabulous if we could have opened up the conversation, and rather than me get in the way of reading your lovely questions, you asking them specifically. But as ever, with any innovation, one step at a time, let's experiment a little and learn a lot. So do help us with whether you think the format is useful, and do get in touch with SXS Events if you feel, as your organization yourself, they can do something for you that's a little different in this time. Before I announce next week's speaker, which I'll do in a moment, I do want to thank you, Victoria, very much indeed for spending the time with us, for dealing with our difficult questions so straightforwardly, and for everything that you do here in the region. And I'm going to say it again, what a lovely little strap line. Make it the best place to live, to learn, and to work.
Yeah, thank you.
Round of applause, everybody. Here we go. We're in the microphone.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me. It's been
Before
really
you
nice.
all go, thank you.
Thank you.
We've got next week, Tuesday at 2, we've got Tej Parikh, who is the IOD's senior economist. Okay, we've bagged him for Tuesday at 2. That's always assuming that the technical hitch of the BBC bagging him first or Radio 4 bagging him first doesn't happen. We're going to have a little different format again. We're going to have Florence Sharifi do a little Q&A with him, a kind of interview format, so that we can hear from Tej, who has been absolutely close to central government the last 10 weeks, particularly Bank of England, particularly the Treasury. Okay, he's been right in there, up to his neck in statistics, working with people like the Chambers, the FSB, and so on, helping the government and particularly the Treasury with their initiatives. But it'd be really fascinating to hear from him as Flo brings it out from him, not only his rear view look at the crisis, but how he's seeing the future and what his crystal ball is telling us about leaving lockdown and recovery. So that's Tej Parikh, next Tuesday at 2. My final message is we're going to keep doing Tuesdays at 2 right through the rest of June. Okay, and after that we're going to take stock. Let's just see if we want to keep doing them weekly, whether this format is working, whether we've all got a bit tired of it, whether we should do them fortnightly, shift the day, shift the time. So again, do feedback to us, either in the chat before you leave now, or just ping something to the IOD Southwest website, because we'd love to know which direction you'd like us to go, and whether there are any speakers or any topics you'd particularly like us to pick up on. So with that, and with enormous thanks to Victoria, the guys here at SXS, please stay safe, stay alert, keep smiling, and keep your organizations safe and on the straight and narrow, and hopefully emerging fitter for the future after lockdown. See you next week. Bye.